All right, and we are back for week 3 of our Use the Force, Jedi's Guide to the Law of Attraction. So we covered chapters 5 and 6. So the chapter on receiving and giving it time. So I had a couple things that I pulled out, but and I don't want to monopolize this. So Maria, did you want to start with some of the stuff you had?
You know, the one thing that came up for me was on page 56, about midway. No, it is midway. They talked about the creator of Chicken Soup for the Soul, Jack Canfield. And it's and right now he's in the news. I've been watching current information on their organization is just struggling. And he has had such abundance for so long. And to now be struggling, I believe it's with bankruptcy. And I'm just thinking how important it is to maintain your connection with positivity, because somewhere, that's evidence to me that somewhere along the way, he lost the faith in the universe. What do you think?
I agree. I don't watch the news. So
yeah,
I
follow him because I'm writing a book.
Oh, okay.
And he was so successful. So I like to look at other authors that have had successes. And it's when I heard that, I thought, somewhere he lost faith with the universe.
Yeah, I mean, we've all experienced it, right? It's easy to let things slip, and the thing is, and I think in the next chapter about where he talks about giving it time, he also talks about the repetition and using that in a way that we want to bring about positive stuff, but it works the other way too. And it's so easy, you start to have like a negative thought and it starts, you repeat it more and more, it starts to cement in as an emotion, and then it really kind of becomes part of your aura, right? And part of what you're drawing in. And I think the best guard against that is awareness, right? We know, no matter how much success we have in our life, it can turn on a dime just like that, right? So but the opposite is also true. So we just want to be aware that that can happen and be mindful of our thoughts, be able to catch our thoughts, right? As early as possible. And the more and more we do that, the easier it gets. I mean, some of the self-talk I used to tell myself when I was younger, I mean, I wouldn't even dream of saying like something like that now. It's and it's been years of like, wait a minute, that, and I shouldn't talk to myself that way, even if I'm joking, right?
Right.
I mean, you see people all the time, saying, oh, I'm so stupid. Why did I do that? Okay, I will never say that to myself ever. Because, even if you're joking,
it's connecting.
Your subconscious doesn't know the difference.
Right.
So, and all those little things add up. Sorry, cut you off.
Go ahead, Bonnie. Yeah, there's some reflection here.
I joke like that. I don't ever take it seriously. And I'm like, man, why was I doing something that was so dumb? Why did I do dumb?
Yeah.
Well, you could always rephrase it, and now you're aware, right? So
right.
Yeah. I rephrased mine because I think that, and I thought that a lot, And now I just say, oh, you silly girl. Oh, that was silly. Or why do you keep being so silly? And that way I think I turn it into a lighthearted. That was just a silly thing I did. I made a slight, I made a difference or a mistake. But I'm just saying, oh, that was silly of me to do that. Do you think that's enough? Or,
and I mean, we all make mistakes, right? And, I've made some doozies but you can rephrase it in such a way where, I've made some mistakes that were truly dumb and I knew better, but I wasn't listening to my intuition and, blah, 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 you know how that goes. So, I mean, I would just rephrase it and say, well, what have I learned from this? This was not an ideal situation. I could have made better choices. But, number one, why did I let it happen? And number two, how can I prevent it from happening again moving forward and learn from the experience so that it's a positive, it serves as a way to let it never happen again, right?
You hope.
Right.
You hope. It's hard though. It's hard not to let things happen again. Because a decision, we don't know it's a bad decision until it becomes that bad decision.
Well,
yeah,
yeah,
correct.
Yeah, I would agree and disagree with that.
There's a lot of truth in both of those. I agree.
I always have that little voice, that little gut feeling that, maybe I shouldn't do this.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I don't know.
It takes, if you ignore that little gut feeling, it tends to get quieter. So food for thought.
It also, okay, on that same thought though, it also talks in chapter 5 to give until you feel uncomfortable. Well, that uncomfortable feeling is your warning sign not to do something. So how do you decipher between I'm uncomfortable because it's an uncomfortable, it's something I haven't done, I haven't been there, it's taking away from what I am, I don't know. Anyway, I don't know how to put the words to it. Or is it something that's a warning sign? It's like, woo, 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 woo,
So yeah, so I actually had that in my notes to talk about, so let's talk about it. I kind of disagreed with him on that.
Me too.
So
where did he write about it? Do you guys know the page?
Let's see, it's 59 where he talks about giving.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah. Okay. Thanks.
And so, for me personally, I actually carve out money in my budget to donate to charities and to give, right? Because I do think that is incredibly important for being in an abundant mindset. When you feel like you're abundant, you're free to give, right?
Yes.
So I think that's very important to do that. However, I don't, I don't have $1 million, so maybe I should try this, but but I don't think giving to the point where it's uncomfortable is a good idea. Maybe not to start, because for me, that actually shifts you into more of a lack-based mindset.
Right.
And it contracts you, right? And when I teach manifestation, I'm always talking about, being in that expansive state versus being contracted down, right? And we want to expand out, be relaxed, and send our energy out and not be so tight and pulling in. And I've found personally that is really important. But that being said, over time, with years of practice, I've there were times that I wouldn't even I was in the mindset of, why should I give money away? I'm struggling myself. And, that wasn't entirely true. I had enough, my bills were paid. Maybe I didn't have enough to, buy, the latest little toy or gadget or trip that I wanted, but, I my needs were met, right? So, I mean, over time, I started to give what I could. And one thing very important, I never let anyone pressure me into giving where I didn't feel like I wanted to freely give.
Right.
I use
So,
the example of giving away coffees. We're accustomed to how many coffees do we get a week? Like if we go to Starbucks, that's our like treat to ourselves. But instead, we give so many of those coffees a week away to somebody. That's kind of an uncomfortable, that's comfortable. That's not going to put you into the streets if you give uncomfortably.
exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
Right.
That was my best example on that one.
Yeah, and it goes also back like I have I have an organization. I have a recurring donation of $10 a month, and it's I believe in the cause that they're doing. But that's because and it's comfortable, and I've thought, well, they're doing pretty good. Do they still need my money? It's like, no, I still believe in the cause, and I want, my putting money into that is also a form of putting my energy into that. So I start to see it not just as giving money, but you're actually giving them energy. And so I am very intentional with how I spend my money. I try my best to, buy from people I want to succeed in their business, and that tends to be smaller businesses. I will donate, I will sponsor, you know as long as it's within my budget and not, I'm not ignoring a bill to donate. But that's very important to me, and I've noticed it has fostered a lot more abundance in my life. Just to be able to freely give and do so to things that I care about and I want to succeed. And that is why, homeless person on the street, I may or may not give to them.
Right.
Because I feel like, well, it's very unfortunate, their situation, but, what are they doing to take the steps to get out of that? And, I know that's a complicated issue, and, there's mental health involved and all that. But when I give, I want to be giving to something where I feel the funds will be used to make that person or organization succeed. And, that's very important because it's not just my money, it's my energy I'm putting towards that. So I don't want it to be wasted.
Right.
Yeah.
So, but I'm much more generous than I was in the past, and it's been good for me. So,
Well,
Yeah.
and while we're on the subject of Starbucks,
Oh gosh.
how nice is it that there's that movement now where people pay for the person behind them.
Oh, I know. I do that.
And it's, I mean, everybody orders, there might be some people that order like a big order, but for the most part, most people order about the same thing. So it's money you would have already spent anyway. But, the upliftment that happens,
Yeah.
as you
Yeah.
have a whole chain of people, and, they're all paying for coffee, but, it's an energetic lift, and I always love that. And
Yeah.
I mean,
I do that in a restaurant sometimes.
Yeah.
I dine alone a lot, and I'll watch a family or something, and I'll say, you know what, waitress, I want to pick up their tab.
Oh,
And that feels good. That feels good. And I do it anonymously.
Yeah.
I don't do it for recognition. So I say, don't tell them I did it. Just tell them, you know, a friendly person did it, but it feels good when you can afford it.
Yes.
When I'm flowing.
Right. Yeah. Because if you can't afford it, it's going to have the opposite effect.
Right.
I truly believe, because you're like, oh, you're giving, but you're pulling back at the same time.
Yeah, that's
like, I want to do this, but I really can't afford it. And, you know, then you're putting yourself into that lack mindset. So
yeah.
I wrote a note in the margin here. There's no reason anybody living in the United States should not feel abundant. Even the poorest of the poor. We, for the most part, we have foods in our bellies. We have running water. You know, we're living places with foundations. We don't live on dirt floors. You know,
and we have opportunity.
We have opportunity. You know, we're safe for the most part. You know, we don't live in a third world country where we worry about, you know, drug lords, you know, coming after us and killing us like they do in Africa. They take the children, and, you know, so we, just to be living in this country, we should feel abundant and blessed. And, you know, I don't say that to scold anyone. I just, you know, as a reminder, when we're in those low spots, that's something we can fall back on. It's like, hey, no, you know, I'm in a country where, you know, there are problems in other countries that I wouldn't even dream of having, because, you know, we have running water, for God's sakes. There's other places that don't, or you can't drink the water, right? So definitely, if, you know, we're feeling a little shaky in our vibration, that's something we can always fall back on.
Yeah.